You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clark, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mark Clark and Marco Corona. You know, the Nuggets, again, down in the series, but they show no quit, show that they have the heart to continue on, to keep playing. What did you guys think about the game last night and Kitchener-born Canadian man, Jamal Murray, you know, Maple Jordan? Just kidding.
Why? We just started the show and you got to start with that already, right? Come on, man. Come on. Classic, right? Classic Jamal Murray, classic Denver Nuggets. I think it's funny that they're named the Nuggets because they are becoming a nugget to every team that faces them. You try to flush them and they keep on coming back up. That team doesn't quit, man. Tell you what, like they have a lot of good pieces, and we said last week that the future is bright for them, and it showed. And they have a lot of fight in them. And the Lakers, I'm not sure if this was their wake-up call or whatnot, but I think one more game and we have a series here, or it can go completely the other way, or the Nuggets have him right where they want him.
Exactly.
Right? So, no, I mean, at this point, I want to say I was impressed with Jamal Murray, but I think at this point, it's almost become the expectation, right? I don't know what you guys think about that. Like it's like he's being so, him and the Joker and everybody else coming off the bench, and they're just a well-balanced team. And I don't usually look at the score sheets because sometimes they don't tell the full story. But if you look at the score sheet from game 3, right, which was last night, as we record this today, the balanced attack was the most impressive thing, right? I mean, there wasn't a significant drop-off, and then we can talk about the Lakers in a second, from Murray and the Joker and Michael Porter and Grant. I mean, it was very, very balanced. And I think as a fan, that's all you ask for, right? And it's fun to watch, and good on them. Good on them for fighting back. Not surprised again at this point anymore, but we'll see how it plays out going forward.
Yeah, they're a really resilient team. I mean, Joker and Murray, they're a really good 1-2 punch on that team. And as you mentioned, Marco, I'm not surprised by Jamal Murray anymore. Right. Who surprised me last night? Or I mean, he's expected to put up big numbers, right? Because he's that good. I mean, he's on the road to becoming a superstar, if not almost a superstar right now.
Are you talking about Jamal?
Jamal, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The person who surprised me last night, or who I was interested to see, is Grant. Yeah. Jeremy Grant. He put up big numbers for them last night. He played really well. He scored every bucket when they needed him to score.
Efficient.
Yeah, he was super efficient last night. Michael Porter Jr., he came through for them as well. He did put up some big buckets. He also got some really good putbacks when they really needed the putback. So good for them. Last night's game was really fun to watch. I mean, at one point I thought I was like, oh no, they're about to lose a 20-point lead to the Lakers. And you know, once the Lakers get within a certain number, there's no turning back for them. But I think they were gassed, the Lakers. But good for Denver though. They really fought it out and bounced back when they needed to.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you touched on it there too. I mean, do they kind of have them where they want them? If they lose one more game, you know, like that's where Denver is. And you talked about them losing a 20-point lead. They showed the stats. The last 7 games, I think it is, they haven't led any of the games. You know, their first halves have been horrible. They're always chasing the game. And it seems like they play a lot better when they're chasing the game and trying to hold the lead. That's what it looks like. But Jamal Murray, I mean, there's nothing more that can be said about the guy. The guy, like you said, he's on his way to being a superstar player. Definitely on his way to be a superstar player. He knocks down the big buckets when you need him to. He doesn't shy away from the contact, doesn't shy away from driving into the hoop, doesn't do any of that. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that's going to facilitate the ball, but also open up space because of his ability to shoot the ball, open up space for other guys like Jokic, Jeremy Grant. I mean, Jeremy Grant himself, like, went to the line 12 times, you know? Like, that's Jeremy Grant going to the line 12 times. That means he's attacking the basket with will, taking the contact. And that's what the Nuggets basketball has been these last two series and in this series. They're not afraid to take the hits. They're not afraid to take the bumps. They're not afraid to go down in the series. They're not afraid to chase the game. But you can't keep going to the well so many times. Eventually you're going to get burned. You know what I mean? So they have to, you know, try and, if they get a lead, hold that lead. You know what I mean? You can't go back and forth and lose a 20-point lead like that.
Right.
Only the Clippers do that.
And there it is.
Right?
And there it is. Listen, that's a great point about chasing the game and constantly playing from behind, because to your point, and we see this not only in basketball, but in other sports, you know, the law of averages eventually catches up to you, right? And it's going to come back and bite you in the rear. But until further notice, I mean, that's the recipe for success, and it's clearly has worked for now. So I guess we can't question it, but yeah, I mean, I know they're playing with house money, as we said a couple of weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago, but they're also playing with fire.
Yeah.
Right. And eventually, you know, the Lakers, and maybe we can get into that now, I guess, they were going to figure it out. I'm sure they've talked about this, obviously, but what I was really surprised, if I can just jump into the Lakers now, guys, is that, you know, I was talking about a significant drop off, and I was just looking at the numbers last night. And again, I don't usually, you know, sometimes numbers are overrated, but to me, it told a bit of a story last night about the Lakers. When you look at LeBron James had a phenomenal, LeBron James was LeBron James. I think we can sort of agree with that, right? I mean, 30 points, 10 assists, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Davis, I thought, was average, and I'll circle back to that in 1 second. I think 27 points was a bit of, you know, whatever. And there's a significant drop off. I mean, the next closest guy is KCP with 12 in 26 minutes. Rondo was solid, but I mean, you know, you don't expect Rondo to drop 40 anyways. But then nobody else did really much. And I know the Lakers had a late run there. But
Rondo was a big part of that big run, though.
No, I am completely understand that. But
the Nuggets,
no, I completely understand that. I'm not looking at Rondo's numbers, and that's why I said I don't expect Rondo to drop 30. But the other guys, you know, if you take Rondo away from that run, you know, that score is not as close as
50-point game. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
But
right?
you know what really surprises me though with AD, he only had 2 rebounds.
Thank you. You stole my thunder, but no, I like that.
Oh,
no. That's totally fine. We're family here. That's cool, right? I'll steal your thunder in the next segment. But listen, what did you say, Mark? Two rebounds?
Yeah. 2 rebounds.
2 rebounds in 42 minutes.
Yeah, and I think those 2 rebounds came in the fourth quarter too, I think.
That's not good enough, right? I mean, if you're talking about a top 2, top 3 center in the league, my guy can be getting 2 rebounds in the entire game. I'm sorry, that's not going to cut it.
That's
not
true.
Going to cut it, right? And I don't expect JaVale McGee to bail you out, or Dwight Howard, who's become a bit of a goon. I don't know what you guys think about that. It's kind of weird, doesn't it?
Is he friends with Beverly? Because he's starting to act like him.
Wow. Can we go through a podcast without making reference of the Clippers, or like we're over that? We're better than that, guys.
No, I don't think anything will be, you know.
Nah, that's fine. Season's still going on. So yeah, exactly. I was surprised in the lack of productivity in the boards because I think that Davis can be a dominant player when he's engaged, and he seemed off last night. So I'm sure they'll go back and fix that real quick. Otherwise, we're looking at a 2-2 series.
I mean, you're allowed one off game, but I think game 3 is
when you're elite
4,
right? Not when you're elite.
Game 4 is going to be completely different.
Right.
I think Lakers will take game 4 because obviously it's destiny that Nuggets go down 3-1, and then they'll take the rest of the games. But
let's not forget that Mark and whoever his Vegas associate is has called this series in 7. So however we get to the 7 games, right, it benefits our friend here, you know.
yeah,
Exactly.
Can we get a Vegas sponsor in this show, or are we not to that point? Okay.
Mark, can you talk to your guy?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
I have a guy in Vegas, but that's for another episode.
Is it for basketball or horse racing?
Again, that's for another episode.
You know, you mentioned the Anthony Davis 2 rebounds. I mean, Jamal Murray out-rebounded him. Jamal Murray had 8 rebounds. And that's a 7-foot big man only getting 2 rebounds. Like, what were you doing? Just standing there letting LeBron grab all of them? I mean, they were out. Let's not be real. The Lakers only had 25 rebounds all game.
Right.
25 rebounds. You know what I mean? That's kind of ridiculous. That's kind of crazy. They were out-rebounded by 19 by the Nuggets. The Nuggets, out-rebounded them in terms of offensive rebounds as well. So it's not like they were, but I mean, man, it's just you can't allow yourself to, especially the team that the Lakers are. They're a tough team, a hard team to beat in terms of definitely with Anthony Davis because he's a physical guy. You know what I mean? And you've mentioned it before, Marco. He can't be on the 3-point line taking 3-point shots.
Yep.
You know, he only had 4, but, you know, he was 0 for 4. At the end of the day, you know, he hit that game winner in game 2. Great shot. I'm not going to knock him for that. But there was bad defensive coverage on it. I mean, if he was covered, would he have hit it? We don't know. You know what I mean? Like, right. Plumlee, they got mixed up. He didn't end up covering him, you know. So the series has been close in terms of the last 2 games at least. It's not been blowout games. Like the first game was a bit of a blowout, but last game, you know, game 2, 2-point win. Last night was a closer game. At the end of the game, you know, it ended up being an 8-point victory, but it's a close game. The Lakers have to get more, like you said, more production from the rest of their line. They can't rely on LeBron and AD to put up 50, 60 points a game for them to stay in a game. They can't rely on them to do that. You know, and you mentioned it, Rondo. But playoff Rondo is a different Rondo. He comes out, he balls out, he does his stuff. You know, he's not the Boston Celtic Rajon Rondo he was before, but he's gonna come out. He's gonna come off the bench, give you energy, give you steals, play hounding defensive stuff like that.
He was big for them last night.
Exactly. You know, Danny Green wasn't. I don't know where he is, but.
There it is.
You know, like it's the same thing like he was with the Raptors. You know, he's hot and cold. He plays one good game. The next game, he's gone for the next 3 or 4 games. And that's what the Lakers can't have. They can't have, against this Nuggets team, a bad offensive night like they had at the beginning in the bubble. You know what I mean? You can't have those bad offensive nights, especially where you are with the Nuggets. Yeah, you can get up 3-1 on them, but if you start having a bad offensive night in game 5, 6, 7,
they'll outshoot you.
You're going home. You know what I mean? They're going to outshoot you because they're going to shoot the ball. And they shoot the ball. They've been shooting the ball efficiently, especially Jamal Murray, you know, especially hitting 3-pointers, clutch points at the end of the game. He's one of the league leaders in clutch points in the bubble in the playoffs this season. So, I mean, the Lakers have to get it in gear, and I think they will. I mean, I know I picked the Nuggets to win in 7, but at the end of the day, You mentioned it last week. You never bet on LeBron, and LeBron is LeBron for a reason. He's got AD there. The Lakers just have to get that extra production, for them to sort of to get the series rolling in their favor.
Before we go to the next, topic, and I try to promise myself to not talk about this because I know it gets Clarky going, but I gotta ask, and I never thought I was gonna get this in September 23rd. What the hell happened to Danny Green? Like, I gave him a pass last year because Danny Green easy there. Exactly. Even you're dropping stuff because it's like Danny Green's on the team.
Free
right?
word.
Yeah. So what happened to Danny Green? Because Danny Green is supposed to do two things: defend and shoot. And I don't expect Danny Green to be Steph Curry. Like,
No.
Obviously nobody does. But has his play dropped off that bad? Like, it's like, it's once the playoffs started for Toronto, Danny Green turned into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to this guy. Like, he when Danny Green was acquired by the Raptors, many people who followed either the Spurs or basketball in general, they said, wow, we got Danny Green as a throw-in. What a steal.
That's a steal, yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden, it just, like, Danny Green went from very good to, why is he starting?
Yeah.
Like, what
I'm
happened?
not sure if it's a confidence thing or what's going on there, stage fright. But yeah, he disappeared last season in the playoffs, and he never showed up back. And I'm not sure if you remember let's say the first half of last season. This guy was phenomenal. I remember going to a Raptor game. He took over the game. He scored, like, I remember it was 9 or 11 threes, and everyone was chanting Danny, Danny, and he was just going off. And I mean, we haven't seen that Danny Green anymore. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it goes to consistency. He's not consistent enough to be in the starting lineup. You can't have a game where you're going to hit 4 threes, next game hit 0, the next game hit 0, the next game hit 0, then 4 games, because you're in the playoffs. There's only 7 games at most. You can't have 5 games where you're not shooting the ball and be considered a consistent 3-point shooter, or considered a 3-point shooter. And that's what happened with him with the Raptors. He got into his funk where he wasn't hitting shots. They kept giving him shots, and he still wasn't hitting. They're doing the same thing with the Lakers. He's just not hitting his shots. And maybe it is a confidence thing, like you said, Mark, but I mean, I think it's a lot to do with consistency. He's just not being consistent enough, building up that they're not getting him enough shots, I guess, maybe early on in the game, getting him warmed up. I don't know what it is, but I mean, Danny Green isn't the Danny Green from San Antonio. It's definitely not the same Danny Green.
And one last point on Danny Green, because we've gone way over for Danny Green talk for the entire year, but Danny Green can score 9 points, so we say he's horrible.
Yeah.
Rondo can score 9 points, and we said, wow, he had a great game.
Yeah. It's
But
right?
see, the thing is,
that count, right? And
Danny Green is a 3-point player. You
right.
have this guy in the team because it's his job to shoot threes. He's shooting 36%.
I'm shooting 33%.
But, yeah.
How are you a 3-point player?
I'm not even playing,
and you're shooting 36%.
But I think it's with Danny Green. I think that the one thing, and you and I, Mark, had discussions about Danny Green last year because you were on the get the hell out of here Danny Green bandwagon. Is that I always with him is his defense was always there, but now I think both have sort of been average at best, right? And you can see it. And I think I just realized what you said about a confidence, maybe, which is funny to say, a 2-time NBA champion. 2 or 3, right? 2-time NBA champion.
2-time, yeah.
Right? Second team all defense, et cetera, et cetera. This guy's not a scrub, right? This guy's a vet that he would lose his confidence that quick. So,
yeah.
You know what could be contributing to it too also? LA. Just being in LA.
He's in Orlando,
in the
dude.
spotlight.
He's in Orlando. He's in the Magic Kingdom.
No, I mean, he's playing for LA. You know what I mean.
You did not give Danny Green a pass for basically almost 16 months. And now you're going to tell me that because he's in LA. He's in Orlando. Stop. Come on, man.
Yeah, he's in that. Yeah, that I don't know, man.
Honestly, I don't even know why
he's going on the ride.
Yeah, maybe. You know, he's on the what are those the teacup ride? You know, spinning
the
around.
Merry-go-rounds or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but,
unless he went out with Lou Williams. Okay, next topic.
Magic City, you know. Anyways, moving on. You know, moving on to the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference Finals is a full swing. You know, they're already 3 games in. Game 4 is going on right now as we speak. That series is going to be a barn burner of a series. It's going to be a tough, hard-fought series, in my opinion. Celtics got back Hayward. They match up well in terms of length, especially in terms of lineup with the Miami Heat. I think it's going to be a really, really good series. And so far through 3 games, it's definitely been as advertised.
The thing that I love about this series, and I'm a little bit older than you guys, is that it's old school, right? It's old school. Let's just win this on the court. Let's not get all fancy and stuff. Listen, you're going to see some nice plays and dunks, and you know, with Bam and Tyler Hero shooting threes and Duncan Robinson. But at the end of the day, what's going to win this series is who can make stops at key points of the game.
Yeah. Right.
This is not about guys dropping 45 or 50 or any of that stuff. This is ugly basketball. And I love every minute of it. And this is why I said this is going 7. I'm still sticking with the Heat in 7. And again, it's funny, right? Jimmy Butler doesn't have to score 35 points for him to have an impact on this game, on any of the games, because he's just doing. He is playing his ass off, whether we like Jimmy Butler or not. Like, this is some old school basketball. I love it. I you know what? I can watch this series go 9. Honestly, like I'm good with that. Like, Adam Silver will come in and like, WWE, this match must continue. Right. But it's great. But you know, Boston has to keep their cool. You know, we've seen some cracks. We saw the whole thing, and I know they won a game, you know, with Jaylen Brown and Mr. the King of the North, the self-proclaimed King of the North. Right. But Miami can get in their kitchen, and Miami, the only guy that doesn't seem to get rattled is Jason Tatum, who is the only guy I really like in that team. I used to like Brown, but then he became an ass. But anyways, strategically, I think these teams match up so well, right? They can go on shooting slumps at any given moment, but they can lock you down at any given moment. So it's great to watch. It's great basketball to watch. It's like watching basketball in the mid-90s. I love it.
Yeah, it's really good to watch. I mean, with game 3, I think Miami had a game plan.
Yep.
Boston got back Hayward. He was really big for them.
Fresh too, right?
Yeah, he's fresh too.
You can tell.
So Boston came out shooting. Miami completely got caught off guard and completely forgot the game plan. And
they got sloppy at points.
Yeah.
I just gave Butler so much praise, but even he was sloppy. Like, he was like 2 or 3 turnovers in the span of like 5 minutes.
Yeah, because they only won the 4th quarter. Miami, Boston won all 3 quarters. So I think they got caught off guard. They weren't really, like, they were still playing Boston without Hayward. They didn't really change up their game too much to accommodate the changes with Hayward being back, and they got caught slipping, and they just completely threw the game plan threw it away, and they never were able to catch up and get a grip of that game, and it got away from them.
They were off.
They were off. They were off for a bit. I'm sure we'll see a different game 4 tonight. But I'm gonna stick with what you said, Mark. I'm still going with Miami in 7.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning there, this series is going to it's advertised already. You know, game 1 went to overtime. Game 2 was a close game. The Boston win was an 11-point win, but I mean, it's going to be a really hard fought series. It's not gonna neither team wants to give an inch in this series. You know what I mean? Neither team wants to give an inch. They, like I said, they match up very well against each other. Both teams can hit the 3 ball very well. They have guys that can drive and kick to those open shooters. We saw it with the Raptors series. Boston Celtics could drive and kick with the best, you know, get those open threes, the corner threes, stuff like that, you know. I don't want to hear about no King of the North. I don't want to hear about that, but, you know, Marcus Smart, you know, for all his credit, the guy's a good defender. Yes, he flops, but he's a good defender when he's on the floor. He's a good on-ball defender. Having him on your team, you know, he's going to put his all when it comes on the defensive end of the court. And for Miami to continue to win this series, they've got to obviously hit their 3-point shots, but they have to kind of do what the Raptors did in some of those games where they have to mitigate their losses in terms of allowing one guy to shoot well, but stopping two of the guys. You know, Kemba Walker didn't shoot well, and that's the problem with Boston. They've got probably 4 guys that can really put up points on any given night. You know, Hayward's back. Tatum, Brown, Kemba. There's 4 guys there that are really good, super good players that could contribute on any given night, and that's what makes them such a good team. They're coached by a really good coach in Brad Stevens. They've got a lot going for them, and that's why I think Boston is going to take the series in 7. I just think I hate to say it, but I think Boston's going to take the game in the series in 7. In terms of that, I think their offense will start to kick in, and that the 3-point shooting will start to kick in, and they'll come back in this series and win the series.
And when it comes to guys putting up points for Boston, wouldn't you say Kemba is a toss-up? He's not that consistent.
No, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, but does a lot of that goes to the defensive schemes. You know, the Raptors schemed on him and took him off the pick and roll, didn't allow him to get into the pick and roll as much, to shoot threes off the pick and roll, giving him a lot of open space. They run him off the 3-point line, forced him into to floaters, layups. It's schemes, and that's what Nick Nurse was so good at. And that's what I think Eric Spoelstra will have to do in order to stop the Boston Celtics from getting four guys in double in 15 or more points a game. You know,
double digits, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to somehow mitigate in terms of, you could allow 1 or 2 guys to go off, but you can't allow all 4 to go off, because then it's a recipe for, you know, they each put up 20 points. You're already at 80 points right there. You know what I mean? That's through 4 guys. You can't allow that. You have to mitigate and allow certain players. Okay, you know what? I'm willing to take. It's like that old adage in baseball. I'm willing to trade a run for an out. It's, you know, in basketball, I guess in this, you're willing to take Kemba Walker putting up 20, 30 points, but having Jason Tatum put up 10, Brown put up 10. Is better than having all 4 of them put up 80 between the 4 of them. You know what I mean? So that's how I think Miami has to attack this series. Play hard defense. They're a good defensive team. They've got a lot of length. Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic is a really good defender. Bam Adebayo. You know, they're a strong physical team, and they're going to get at you in your face. They're not gonna back away and say, okay, yeah, you know what, go ahead, do what you got to do. They're going to take you to the hoop. They're going to hack you when you come to the free throw line. They're not going to just let you get easy baskets. And that's why I think it's going to be a very tight series, because both teams kind of do the same thing. But I guess we'll see as it goes on. Right now, Miami was up. From what I was looking at, Miami was up 1 point, but it's still early into the first quarter. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
You know, it's funny. I just want to circle back to something that I think it was you, Clark, that said about Kemba Walker. And I think I'm a little bit disappointed I think I expect a little bit more volume from Kemba, and volume I'm talking about scoring punch, because if you look at his numbers, and you guys can confirm if I'm off, and I looked it up last night and just confirm now as well, that he's actually below his season average, like not by that much. But if we all watch basketball for a long time, and the old adage is, if you're a superstar, if you're scoring 25 a game, you better bring me about 28 to 30 in the playoffs, right? Your scoring has to go up, and he's shooting 19. He's averaging about 19 points a game, 44% from the field. But those numbers, I think, those numbers themselves are, I think, a little bit inflated.
Yeah.
And Kemba is. And I don't know, maybe all those times that we saw him in Charlotte dominate because he was, the go-to guy. So he had there was no other second option, right? It's like the Chris Bosh thing. If anybody was around watching the Raptors back in the days, Chris Bosh obviously was scoring 25 points a game because nobody else was supporting him.
He had the ball more.
Exactly, right? But Kemba has not only, I thought he's looked average to me.
Yeah.
Like Kemba's supposed to be a superstar. I could be wrong. You guys we can debate on that, but I thought he's looked average. So back to your point, Shannon, if you can sort of mitigate those points, right, and sort of dictate the pace of the game and sort of get Kemba to not get off, and he really hasn't. I think he's had one really good game, and it was against the Raptors where he scored maybe 27, 28 points. I could be wrong.
29. It was
okay.
Very close. Okay.
Yeah. He's been okay. Like, he hasn't been great. Tatum has been phenomenal. I think Tatum has been great considering the type of defenses he has seen, right? But I thought Kemba Walker has just been average at best.
So I think what it is it's two different caliber teams, and Kemba now is being exposed a bit. Because as we discussed, Kemba in Charlotte, he had the ball more. He was getting the ball more. He was the go-to guy. He was a star in that team.
But that's what they got him in Boston, though. Like, they got him to replace Kyrie.
But Boston got tricked as well because, again, he's the go-to guy.
Did you say Boston got tricked?
Yep, Boston got tricked with that Kemba deal.
Man.
He's the go-to guy in Charlotte. Now that he's in Boston, he's on a complete different team. He has Tatum that's shooting and has the ball a lot. You have Jaylen Brown that's scoring and has the ball a lot. You have Hayward, and you also have Smart. So he's being exposed a bit now because whenever he has the ball, he's not consistent with his scoring. It's not like every time he gets a ball, he's shooting 100%. But he doesn't have the ball that much, and he's not making shots that great or that well. And that's where his exposure comes in.
Sorry, I'm still laughing at they got tricked part. That's awesome. I hope you don't listen. If Danny Ainge has Instagram and you follow him, just make sure that you don't get blocked in the next half hour.
Yeah, what are you trying to steal a page from Stephen A. Smith? They got hoodwinked. Like, is that what you're going for next? They got hoodwinked.
It is preposterous.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, we can't sit here and say the guy that he had 16 shots last game, 19 shots the game before, 19 before that, 16. He's getting his shots. He's just not hitting the basket.
And he gets a pass,
right?
He gets a pass. Like, let's listen.
A
lot of people. I think he has, for the caliber of player that he is, and for the amount of money, because everybody's quick to criticize guys who make a lot of money or are about to make a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Pascal has entered the chat, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody.
Has entered or left?
No, he's entered the chat to make sure we're actually talking about him. Now he's leaving, right? Like, unfortunately, you're going to get judged on how much money you make.
Yeah.
Right? Because, listen, as good as Gordon Hayward was, he goes under you got tricked column. So does Kemba, because I don't think we've ever seen the full Gordon Hayward in Boston.
No.
He's always injured, though, so I think he gets a little pass.
But that's okay. Well, sorry.
He's had a
injuries
rough
are part
going
of the
in
thing.
Boston.
He has.
He has,
Yeah.
but you got tricked. Can we coin that as a segment? Anyway, you got tricked.
Yeah, we'll just come up with a new segment called the "You Got Tricked."
Yeah, let's do it.
Anyways, my point is, I think Kemba has underachieved.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he has too. I mean, I think, to be 100% honest with you, and this is my honest opinion, I think he's better off playing with a team of not superstars, but a team of that, like he's done, like
average
he has in
guys.
Boston. Not average guys, but players that are able to play the game and able to put up points. He doesn't have to be that go-to number one guy.
Fiddle. Yeah.
Yes, he's getting paid to be that number one guy, but he doesn't have to be the number one guy every single night. We know Charlotte's horrible. Let's put it into perspective. He was needed to be that go-to guy every single night. They didn't have anybody else. Now he can come there. He doesn't, his numbers get skewed a bit in terms of you notice him, but you don't notice him as much because Jason Tatum put up 30 points.
Right.
Brown puts up 25. Marcus Smart puts up 15. Gordon Hayward's puts up 20. You know what I mean? So his numbers get lost in the mix in a sense where he doesn't have to be that number one guy. And I think it kind of plays into Kemba Walker's demeanor more. He doesn't have to be the killer, the go-to guy all the time, the closer. There's other guys that can close with him, but he is getting paid to be that closer guy. So you know what I mean? You have to be consistent enough to be considered that to be getting paid as much as you are. We mentioned it with Pascal Siakam. Here he is entering the chat again. You know what I mean? He's getting paid to be that number one guy. He's got to be more consistent and more, and offensively inclined in terms of putting up points when it comes to clutch time, when it comes to the playoffs. That's when it matters the most, is the playoffs. Regular season numbers go out the door when you get to the playoffs. And I don't care if you put up 18 points a game.
I bet you we wouldn't be having this discussion right now if Kemba had gone to Atlanta instead of Boston.
No, because again, he wouldn't go to Atlanta because Trae Young's there, but
But
no, hypothetically
saying,
speaking, yeah.
He would be a good fit there because he would be running beside
exactly.
Trae, right?
Wow.
You put him on any team in terms of like that needs a point guard, but there's other players around him that can score points. Kemba Walker doesn't need to be the main focal point. He could be overshadowed by other players and still put up. Yeah, maybe they're not gaudy numbers in terms of 30 points a game, but he could still put up his 18 points a game, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, but he doesn't get noticed because, his field goal percentage he's 9 for 19 from the field.
Right. And that, to me, and that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, yes, his numbers are down, and that's a thing, that's a talking point. But to me, he has not been impactful consistently, right? Like, there's no here comes Kemba Walker time. Like, we all know there's Dame time, right? And listen, if you watch Raptors basketball over the last 5-6 years, and you've seen the Charlotte Hornets come to town, it's funny. I was almost more concerned about playing Charlotte when we were like the Raptors were on a winning streak than anybody else, because I know Kemba Walker was coming to town, and that guy was in the set.
Yeah.
But to your point, Marco, there was Kemba time in Charlotte.
Right, but we're not talking about Charlotte. We're talking about Boston.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what they brought him in. They brought him in to bring that killer instinct, right? So he was getting, let's just call it what it is. And he's getting paid for what he did in Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's the point, right?
That's how they got tricked.
There's no better way to end the segment.
We're gonna have to end this segment because we're gonna go on about being tricked and all this stuff. You know what I mean? But we're gonna have to come up with a segment now, the "You've Been Tricked" one, with all the worst contracts and stuff like that. So,
and if anybody wants to sponsor us, give us a setup.
Exactly. We'll have to come up with that segment.
We should go trademark that, eh?
Hey, to quote TLC, I ain't trip out the bag.
Right.
Keep changing my game. Let's go.
Moving on to some coaching news. The Chicago Bulls finally got their man.
Huge pickup for
Billy
them.
Donovan. It's a huge pickup for them. I think he's going to go into Chicago and he's going to make that team a lot better. Look what he did with OKC, with what they had.
Yep.
I mean, Zach LaVine is going to be the biggest benefactor of that. If he already had a great season this year, he's going to have even bigger of a season next year, in my opinion. I think it's a really good option, a really good choice for him. I mean, I thought Sixers were a good option for him too. But at the end of the day, Billy Donovan doesn't have to deal with that stress of building that winning team. He can go to kind of obscurity for a little bit. Chicago's not a small market. We know that. But he can kind of go fade off into the distance a little bit, let them rebuild, let that team grow, and then, do what he did with OKC. Nobody expected anything of them. People are going to be expecting the Bulls to be a better team in the next couple of years.
First of all, I can tell you this right now, whenever the season starts, is that the Chicago Bulls are going to be the hottest pick to make the playoffs by somebody.
Yep.
And it's just because, right? So I hope Stan Mitchell's not picking the Chicago Bulls because we all know how that turned out. I love Sam, but, come on, stop. Detroit, really? Anyways, the Chicago Bulls have been bottom feeders. They've made awful personnel decisions. They've made awful roster calls. They've made awful trades. And I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan. And this is one of the best moves they've made in about 10 to 12 years.
Yep.
As a building block to have the right person lead the way. I don't know how it's going to turn out because my gut tells me that they're going to screw it up in a year and a half from now, because that's what they do. Like, they see a good thing and it's like, meh, let's just screw this up. But Billy Donovan is a very good coach. They have a young roster. I think they just have to add some veteran pieces. And listen, if I've ever talked basketball to you, anybody who's watching or listening to this, I am a big proponent of, if you have a young team, you must have some veteran leadership in that locker room. I don't care if that player plays 2 minutes or 20 minutes, you have to have some, sprinkle that in. I think that's the Chicago Bulls need to add that, but they have the right guy to steer the ship, right? And I know Charles Barkley was very critical of, there's what did he say? There's two worst jobs in the world: the coaching the Chicago Bulls and being the captain of the Titanic.
Wow,
which is super harsh, but funny.
It is, yeah.
But they have to start somewhere. So they have the right coach. They have a lot of good young pieces, right? Starting with Zach LaVine, and I think he's going to be, to your point, Shannon, he's going to be the benefactor of that. So let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes from there.
Yeah, great pickup for the Bulls. I think Billy Donovan is a perfect fit for that team. As Marco says, I just need a couple of vets on there, and they'll be good. It's a fairly young team. I think Billy Donovan will know how to relate to those young guys. He, as you mentioned, Mark, he did great in OKC for the 5 years he was there. So. It's not much more I can say, but it's a good pickup, and I'm expecting to see a better Chicago team and great things from them in the next coming seasons.
You hope so, because I think the NBA would benefit from the Chicago Bulls being relevant again.
Yeah, I mean it's about time, right? They deserve to get a break and be relevant again. They've been in the shadows for way too long now.
In fairness, you have to make your own breaks, and they've pardon the expression, they've shat the bed a long time. So it's time to get it right. And those fans, that city deserves better.
Yeah,
I mean, for that team.
Sticking out east, in terms of another coaching and the coaching carousel that's gone on right now, the Sixers. We discussed Billy Donovan a couple weeks ago, maybe possibly going there when it first came out. But reports now are that Tyronn Lue and Mike D'Antoni are the front runners for this job. Reports also came out in terms of if Mike D'Antoni does take the job, there's going to be a lot of changes in Philly. They're not going to be the same team. There's going to be a lot of changes. But I think both coaches. I mean, Mike D'Antoni. I loved Mike D'Antoni when he was the coach of the Suns. back in the day with the run and gun Suns. But
7 seconds or less.
Right? I don't know how good of a coach he is now in today's NBA. It's I love him, but I don't know how good he is of a coach in today's NBA.
He's going to get rid of all the bigs.
Listen, if I'm Philadelphia, and it's funny, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I thought Billy Donovan would be a great fit in Philly. I think we agreed on that, or maybe not.
No, we did.
If I'm Philly, I want no part of D'Antoni.
Yeah.
Like the way that team is constructed, the only way, to your point, is going to work is if they completely restructure that roster, which means you got to get rid of Embiid.
Yeah, you got to go through the process again.
I don't understand. Philadelphia spent a lot of time and energy and losses and load management, right, for lack of a better term, and the process to get this guy where he is. And then you're going to bring a coach who's going to say, meh, because that system that D'Antoni runs has to be it's very offensively structured in a certain way. I just don't see the fit with the D'Antoni team and the way that Philadelphia team is structured as it stands right now. Unless the entire team completely changes their mindset, I don't see it happening. Tyronn Lue, on the other hand, I can see that being a good fit for the young guys with with Simmons and Embiid, right? But Philadelphia's got a lot of decisions to make because a lot of guys are making a lot of cake, and they have to somehow make it work with what they have. Because there's not a lot of teams, unless you're talking about teams that didn't make the playoffs, that are going to eat up a lot of those contracts, unless you're the Clippers. But anyways, that's for another day.
I agree with you,
That's
Marco.
4 Clipper references, by the way.
The main reason I would not hire D'Antoni in Philly if I was making that decision, D'Antoni has had James Harden, who is arguably one of the top 5, top 3 best players in the league right now. He's had him for years, and he's never won. He's never gone to I don't remember if they've ever gone to the conference finals. They're always going out in the second round. Like, why would I trust you to come to Philly and lead these young Simmons, Embiid, or whoever? I mean, probably Embiid would be gone if they hire him, but why would I trust you to come to Philly and win a championship for me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ty Lue is a great fit. I would definitely hire Ty Lue over D'Antoni. Sad to say, but I mean, Ty Lue is a championship coach. He knows how to coach the younger guys. I think he would be a better fit in Philly than D'Antoni.
I you know what? Anybody who's watching or listening to this podcast, I'll leave it at this. Mike D'Antoni is to basketball what Mike Martz was to the NFL. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, man. Like, is LeBron James going to Philly if Tyronn Lue's going to Philly?
Maybe.
Why would you bring that up, though? I don't understand.
He's Ralph Branny.
Yeah, exactly. But
hanging out with Uncle J.R. Smith too.
Right? Wait till LeBron gets out the bubble. Bronny's gonna be running around. No, I'm not home. I'm not coming home. Keeping out with the coaching carousel again. Indiana, the Pacers. Raptors assistant coach came out today. Reportedly, Nate Bjorkgren was interviewed for the head coaching job for the Indiana Pacers. Another good coach that's in the Raptors system there. It's kind of like what all these coaches were to Pop. You're starting to see with Nick Nurse, Adrian Griffin, Nate Bjorkgren. A lot of these guys are getting these interviews for head coaching jobs.
Right.
And, I think he'd be a good fit in there too. I mean, he hasn't really gotten an opportunity here in Toronto to be like the head coach. Like Adrian Griffin was given that one game, so we don't know exactly how he would fit into it. But I think in terms of his tutelage, in terms of what he's learned from Nick Nurse and all the other coaches that are on that staff, I think he'll be a good fit for Indiana too, if they were to go that route.
Well, they got to do something. They got to change the way they play. It was, again, you know, Nate McMillan, right? Good coach there. He did what he could, but they were too slow. They were way too slow for the pace that the NBA plays. So they need to change a little bit of pace. And for the personnel they have, right, they got to get somebody that can push the pace a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it looks like there's starting to develop a nurse tree or a doctor's office tree. I don't know what you want to call it. Somebody needs to give us a suggestion or something. But yeah, I hope he gets a fair chance. And if not, then, it is what it is. But the Pacers have, I still think they're a superstar away from being really good. I really like that team, the way it's constructed. It's a little bit of an old school. It's like the Pacers and the Heat sort of. It's like the Pacers are like the low budget Heat, right? They play really good defense, but they don't have enough pieces to sort of put it all together. And I think they're one star away from being really, really good. Again, not a top 2 team or elite, but let's see what happens. I think we need to mix it up in the East a little bit.
Yeah.
I was a bit surprised when I got the notification about Nate. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because he's a great assistant coach, but I thought we'd see a bigger push for Adrian Griffin. So I was a bit surprised to that regard. But I mean, as you mentioned, Marco, the Pacers, they need to try to get back to where they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They haven't been the same. As you mentioned, their pace, they're not playing at the NBA pace right now.
They were last in the NBA in pace.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, I hope Nate gets a fair shot at it, and it would be sad to see him go, but again, I'll be happy for him because everyone deserves that shot, right?
I'm sure Masai already has somebody. He found somebody in Mrs. Square One or something like that, and he's a genius. Trust me, it's fine. We'll be fine. The Raptors will be fine, right? Not we, right? Okay.
Moving on to some not free agency news, but I mean some news in terms of Giannis Antetokounmpo. He said he wants to stay in Milwaukee for the rest of his career. I mean, I don't know what you guys think of it, but I mean, I believe that's all hyperbole. I don't believe it's anything. I think he's just telling the people what they want to hear. He's not. That's
what you call clickbait,
right? It's called what's the thing you said? You've been tricked. That's it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've been tricked, Milwaukee fans. You've been tricked. But no, I think it's a lot to do with. I think it's just he's gonna come. He's not gonna come out and say, "Hey, I want to leave." Well, no, obviously he's not gonna come out in the media and say that. He's got one more year left on his contract. We'll see what happens during the season and if one gets done or if one doesn't get done. But, I mean, unless Milwaukee goes out and gets a few pieces, I just don't see how he stays. I just don't see how he stays with this team because they're not, like I've said before in this podcast a couple times, they remind me of the Raptors from a few years ago. They just can't get over that hump. They just can't get over that hump with Giannis or not. They just can't get over that hump. And maybe a change of scenery for Giannis would bring, some success to him, whether it's Toronto, whether it's to any other team. It might bring him some success, and maybe he needs to get out of Milwaukee to see that.
We have great Greek food here, just to put that out there.
We have a whole festival, Taste of Danforth. We'll call it Taste of Giannis. Well, no, never mind.
No, we'll have to edit that. I think Giannis is saying all the right things for a guy who is trying to weigh his options. Yeah. Number one, he doesn't want to be the villain and be a distraction in the upcoming season by saying, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future, right? Yeah. He has to say, I want to be here. I don't know what exact words he used, but he's doing a business decision here. I still think he's going to test free agency. Yeah. It would be the smart thing to do. We all understand that he's going to get the most money staying in Milwaukee, but the Bucks also have to do what they need to do to not mortgage the future, number one, and number two, try to surround this kid with some better pieces.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Bledsoe's not going to cut it. And actually, by the way, before I digress, everybody who's trying to get Bledsoe to Toronto, can you just delete your social media and get the hell out of this country? Honestly.
Stop it.
Like, quarantine yourself. Enough. Okay, sorry, I'm done. Wow. Yeah, I think Giannis has to test free agency, whether it's, talking to a certain team in the 416, there's only one team here, or other teams. Otherwise, I think he has to say what he has to say, and, we'll see what's going to happen. But if I'm him, I want to test free agency and see what else is out there. But next year is perhaps the biggest year in Milwaukee in the last 20 years, because they have to do something. One and done is not going to cut it. Second round, third round is not going to cut it. I think they have to be in the finals for him to even say, I think I want to stay. Mm-hmm. Until then, it's all up for grabs, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's just saying all the right things right now. And I mean, rightfully so. He should say the right things. But as I mentioned to you guys in the chat, after the next second round exit, he's not gonna want to be in Milwaukee anymore, and he'll be the first. I mean, he'll probably leave during free agency next season or the off season. But I don't see him staying 15 years when there's not a good team around him, good guys or supporting cast around him without him winning a championship. If Giannis doesn't win a championship, he's not staying in Milwaukee. And it's gonna come down to that. It's that simple. And as you said, Marco, next season, the upcoming season is going to be their biggest season, because that's going to dictate what happens with Giannis.
Right. And I think, Mark, Shannon, you said it kind of, put it very perfect, actually, to be honest with you. The Raptors and the Bucks sort of mirror each other, what they were a few years ago, with one exception. We didn't have an MVP caliber guy on the roster.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Bucks do. So it's the same sort of idea, but in reverse. Whereas you have the MVP, a two-time now MVP, and he might dip, where we actually had the team around, like we had the team already built, and we were missing
the supporting cast,
that piece,
and the star,
right? And Kawhi was the missing piece to a great team. Mm-hmm. You have already a great player, but the team is sort of okay. So the team is the closest similarity, I guess, is great regular season team can do it in the playoffs. Yep. But you have the elite star. Raptors were a great regular season team, couldn't do it in the playoffs, had a great supporting cast. There's a difference.
Yeah. And in another segment of You've Been Tricked.
Hashtag that.
Right? Hashtag You've Been Tricked.
Yeah.
No, it's man. I just like I said beginning when we started talking about this topic here. I think he's telling Milwaukee fans what they want to hear. He's not going to come out and say, "Yeah, I'm leaving," and then next year just be totally out of it, or fans not want to see him, all that
stuff. Burn his jerseys. Yeah,
exactly.
Just in case there's going to be fans in the arenas next season, he doesn't want to get booed. So.
Right. We don't. Yeah, you know what I mean.
That's an underrated point,
right? It's just you never know, and I think he's got to weigh his options in terms of that. And nowadays in today's NBA, you don't really see NBA players stay with a franchise for their entirety of their career and have success. There's only a very few: Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and you can go further back. Michael Jordan, like there's not very many players that have won the title and stayed with their team forever. They've had to chase titles. Look at LeBron, you know what I mean? Look at Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. They had to chase a title, in Boston. All these guys had to chase titles to win it. Golden State. Kevin Durant had to go to Golden State to win a title. You know what I mean? It's all these guys had to leave to get a title. It's hard to win with a team, and you have to build that team around. You have to go to a team that's already established as a championship contending team. Milwaukee is a championship contending team. The Raptors were a championship contending team. They had other pieces to go around. Like you said, Marco, Milwaukee has Giannis. They have Chris Middleton. But beyond that, there are a lot of spare parts put together. You know, Brook Lopez isn't the Brook Lopez from Brooklyn.
Trash.
When he first came out. Robin Lopez isn't a great player.
Trash.
You know what I mean? And you got Dante DiVincenzo. Decent player.
What is he? The Michael Jordan of Iowa? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't know, but anyways, but that's what I mean. Like, you know, they don't have like Eric Bledsoe. You know, he's going to come to Toronto, according to a lot of Toronto fans. But
no, thank you.
Yeah, right. Like,
No,
if I'm Messiah and they're calling it Eric Bledsoe, it's Eric Bledsoe. Oh, sorry, can't hear you.
Transfer him to New York.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Knicks could use
Oh,
it.
you need the Knicks. Oh, okay, here you go.
Wrong area code.
Right, wrong area code. But that's if I'm Messiah. That's what I'm saying.
716, not 416.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram at @the_basketball_lab, on Twitter at @the_bball_lab. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab, and you could find us on iTunes and Spotify.